Hello, this is Jane Goodall, and first of all, I want to thank the organisers for inviting me to be part of this really important Normandy for Peace initiative. Let's face it, we're going through pretty dark times globally right now. There's armed conflict in so many countries, there's violence, there's domestic violence, there's discrimination and prejudice, and it's not a very peaceful world. Even talk of nuclear war, something I never thought could happen again after Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and pray God it won't. And then there's the violence against Mother Nature. We're harming the natural world so much, and we need to live in harmony with nature. As it is, we're destroying forests, we're polluting the ocean, we're covering the land, the precious land and soil, with chemicals in our industrial farming. And I could go on and on about the harm that we're doing to Mother Nature. And we have to remember we are part of the natural world and we rely on it. And as I say, we must learn to live in harmony. And on top of everything else, right now, we're tackling a pandemic. And this pandemic, COVID-19, has caused so much suffering around the world. So many people have lost their lives, their loved ones, their jobs. There's economic chaos everywhere. And the tragedy is that, to a large extent, we've brought this on ourselves. The people studying these so-called zoonotic diseases, a disease that's caused when a pathogen jumps from an animal to a human. And sometimes this initiates a new disease like COVID-19. And we've brought it upon ourselves, as I say, to some extent, by our absolute disrespect of the natural world and our disrespect of animals. As we destroy environments, animals are pushed in closer contact with humans. And sometimes this can lead to an environment which makes it relatively easy for a new zoonotic disease to be created. And then think what we're doing to animals. We're hunting them, killing them, eating them. We're trafficking them. We're sending them from one place to another, from one country to another. And we're selling them in the wildlife markets of Asia for food, for medicine, and as pets. We're selling them as bushmeat in the African bushmeat markets. And there's the international, usually illegal, trade in exotic animals. And in all of these situations, we're creating environments that can lead to a new pandemic. The wildlife markets in Asia are not only cruel, but so often the animals crowded together in tiny cages, stressed, terrified, and unhygienic. And it's the same with the bushmeat markets. And let's not forget the so-called factory farms, these concentration camps for animals where billions and billions of domestic animals are raised for our food, again in often unhygienic conditions, and again diseases have resulted as pathogens hop from an animal to a person. Many diseases have started that way. And of course, we shall eventually get through this pandemic, we always do, but let's realize that at the same time, underlying this pandemic, there's an even greater threat to our future, to the future of life on this planet, and that's climate change, the climate crisis. And again, that's due to our disrespect of the natural world. We're using the finite natural resources of the natural world as though they're infinite, but they're not. And because of the unsustainable lifestyle of so many people, greedily grabbing far more than they need, destroying the environment for yet another supermarket, for yet another housing estate. And at the same time, a human population is growing, 7.2 billion of us on the planet today, and already in some places the natural resources are used up more quickly than nature can replenish them, predicted to be 9.7, closer to 10 billion people on the planet in 2050. What's going to happen? I don't know. But we have to realize that until we can learn to live in peace and harmony with nature, there can be no peace. Because as we farm all these billions of animals, we're terribly harming the environment. Fossil fuel used to plant the grain where we have destroyed an environment, and then more fossil fuel to get the grain to the animals, and more to get the animals to the abattoir, and more to get the meat to the tables, sometimes across from one continent to another. Water is getting an increasingly short supply in some places. It's really shrinking, and the great aquifers are shrinking. It takes a lot of water to change vegetable to animal protein. We all know that burning fossil fuel is adding to these so-called greenhouse gases that blanket the planet, trapping the heat of the sun, and carbon dioxide is the main culprit. But there's also methane gas, and methane is created during the digestive process of animals, all these billions of animals that we're breeding for meat that we don't need. We don't need so much meat. And so in all of these ways, we are really, really showing violence towards the natural world. And so we get the climate crisis. And you've only got to look around the world today. The worst wildfires in western United States that they've ever known, the hottest temperature in Death Valley, the fires that raged across Australia and other parts of the world last year, the melting ice, the rising sea levels. We've got hurricanes, typhoons are getting more plentiful, and the worst ones are getting more plentiful. And the terrible destruction that this causes, flooding, droughts. And in Africa, there's this terrible plague of locusts, the control of them disrupted as people fight COVID-19. If we don't get together around the planet to tackle climate change, as at the moment we're tackling the pandemic, then the future is really grim for all of us. We're already in the middle of the sixth great extinction. And we're, as I've said earlier, we're part of this natural world. We can't survive without it. We depend on it for clean air and water supplies. What are we doing? I now repeat, there'll never be peace on earth unless we also live in harmony with nature. There'll never be peace on earth until we learn to respect each other. When we come through the pandemic, hopefully we get together to try and find a new relationship with the natural world and with animals, and move towards a greener economy, a different way of living, a less selfish and greedy way. Let's hope that we find ways to alleviate poverty, because when you're really poor, you're bound to destroy the environment, because you've got to clear forests to grow food when your own farmland is overused and your population is growing. And you can't afford to think about what you buy. You just have to do whatever you can to survive. So there's another big problem, and that's the unsustainable lifestyle of the rest of us. And the problem here is that the gap between haves and have-nots is getting greater, and that's leading to unrest and anger and violence. It's inevitable. So should we give up? Some people have said, well, we've reached a tipping point, the point of no return. Absolutely not. We've still got a window of time to fight these things. And if we all do our part, each one of us, we can indeed make the sort of change that we need if we care about the future of our children. And my reasons for hope, the resilience of nature, we destroy a place, give it time, give it perhaps some help, and once again it can support life. The amazing human intellect, think of the amazing scientific innovations that are making it easier for us to live in harmony with nature, like renewable green energy, for example. And then there's the youth. I'm involved in this program, which I began in '91, the Jane Goodall Institute's Roots and Shoots program, now in over 65 countries, young people, kindergarten, university, everything in between, growing all the time, hundreds and thousands of young people, many people who've been through the program and maintain the values. What are the values? That every individual makes a difference every day, and we get to choose what sort of difference to make. And every group chooses projects to help people, projects to help animals, projects to help the environment. We bring young people together, it's usually virtual, sometimes face-to-face, from around the world. And we're beginning to understand that far more important than the color of our skin, our religion, our culture, our language, our country, is the fact that we're all human beings. That is perhaps the most important lesson for us to learn if we want peace on earth, to respect each other. We don't have to think the same as everybody else, but we can respect their right to have their opinion. And if their opinion we believe is really wrong, we can get together and talk through solutions, not be aggressive and point fingers and fight each other. I carry around with me a bell. It's not very beautiful, is it? But it's made from metal, from a diffused landmine, a landmine that was detected by the so-called hero rats, giant forest rats from Africa, who are trained in Tanzania to detect landmines buried under the earth because of their amazing sense of smell. Dogs do it too. But these hero rats have helped to clear Mozambique. These landmines have destroyed so many lives. They've made so many people disabled, losing a foot or a leg. And the rats and dogs, I guess, are working in Colombia and Angola and other places where landmines have been left after a civil war. Hope, if we all get together. But it takes all of us. Each one of us has a role to play. Each one of us can do our part to make a more peaceful world, a world that we can more happily leave to those that follow, a world where every living thing is respected. So I hope that this Normandie for Peace initiative is very successful this year. It's never been more important. We've never needed initiatives like this more than we do right now. So I wish I could be there, and I wish I could be there in person, but I have to send a message instead. Good luck to you. Have a successful meeting. And don't forget, you make a difference every single day.